Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. I have an exciting video, not because it's, a crazy video topic-wise, but because I was just out handling the quail, and I'm now holding Big Dan, who really likes quail. Already took one pretty good bite on the hand, getting him out. I think he's realized that there's no food now, but you may have the very, very rare opportunity of watching me get bit on camera. That does not happen very often. I don't get bit very often. And I don't want that to reflect on Big Dan here. He's a good animal, but he really likes food. And I smell like food. And I reached in and tried to pull him out. I was trying to be smart. I used a snake hook, but I hooked him because, when I first open the cage and he gets that waft of quail smell, he starts coming real fast towards me. So I use a snake hook, but then I reached in and grabbed his tail with my hand, and he just zinged me. Let go pretty quick, but anyway, so just an explanation for if he does get me during this video. You'll get to laugh at me because I'm a wuss. I don't like getting bit. I'm not going to drop him or anything, but yeah, it would hurt more than, a baby ball python or something that's just giving those little fear bites or something. Anyway, today I want to talk about something that is controversial. Yay! I want to talk about cohabitating reptiles. My opinion, and it's just an opinion, guys, on this topic has changed over my lifetime as a reptile keeper. So, long story short, the long prevailing idea was that you just don't cohabitate reptiles, right? Or that there's very few species with which it's appropriate to cohabitate reptiles. Certainly not the pythons and boas that fill my collection. But somewhat that is changing. And even just 6 years ago, when I started keeping a lot of reptiles, that was what we were told, and people would just get real nasty about it. You're only cohabitating because you're too cheap to buy enough enclosures, so you're just a hoarder, and you're putting your hoarding collection addiction ahead of your animal's well-being. Oh, no, I don't want to be that person. I better not cohabitate my animals, right? And by the way, for those of you who might not know, cohabitating your reptiles just means keeping them in the same enclosure, really, right? So other than for breeding purposes, you're told by most people, don't keep them in the same enclosure, right? They don't like it. They're not a social species. They stress out. They'll stop eating. They'll dominate each other, blah, 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 blah. Well, there are some real logical inconsistencies with the arguments that are thrown out there, okay? For example, super common one. Ball pythons are not social by nature. If you put ball pythons together and you think they're cuddling, really the one on top is trying to dominate the other one. It's showing it by its body position that it's dominant over the other one. Well, guess what? If it's a non-social species, as in they don't socialize, then they would not have evolved a social hierarchy structure type behavior, like curling up on top of each other to display their dominance. That's a social behavior, right? That would have had to evolve over hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. So those two ideas do not belong together, okay? Second, you'll hear people say, but in the wild, ball pythons are found in the same pits and the same burrows and the same tunnels all the time. So if they're in the wild doing this, why wouldn't you be able to do this in captivity? Oh, that's only because they must be selecting for the best burrows, and they're tolerating each other because they both wanted that exact same burrow. Okay, well now you are literally extrapolating your random human thoughts into the little brains of the ball python, right? We're leaving the realm of science and logic entirely to have this conversation. But then the people who are promoting that are still very abusive about it. So I haven't, I'm not here to present to you my findings. I don't have data. I haven't dug to the bottom of this issue, and now I'm here to present to you why cohabitating is great and perfect and wonderful and they're all wrong. That's not the purpose of this video. But as a common theme of mine in reptile keeping, I do want things to be scientific. And if people have very, very strong opinions and then zero science to back it up, I'm going to disregard their opinions. I just am. If someone could come to me with data and say, we had a control group of 500 ball pythons, all the same age, that were not cohabitated. And then we had 500 female-female pairs of ball pythons that were cohabitated. Same age, right? Same enclosure type, same food type, same everything. We have tracked them for 10 years, and we have a 15% increase in respiratory infections in the cohabitated group. We have a 22% increase in fasting, refusal of food in the cohabitating group. We have, 6% higher mortality in the cohabitating group. Okay, well, you have some good data. We better look into this, and we probably, in the meantime, should stop cohabitating, shouldn't we? Right? Because that's what you do with science. But people aren't doing that. They're just spouting off whatever they heard on the internet 10 years ago, and they just keep on spewing it out there as if it's now the doctrine of ball pythons. And I'm holding a Dominican red mountain boa in my hands, so obviously this isn't a video just about cohabitating ball pythons. Turns out, the most experienced keepers of this particular species, and really the whole Chilobothris genus, this family of West Indian island boas, right? Among the long-term, highly successful breeding keepers of Chilobothris, at least half of them that I have spoken with cohabitate them. Not just one and one either. I'm talking one or even multiple males and several females spending at least 6 months out of the year, some of them year-round, together in the same enclosure. Okay? Thriving, breeding. They might have something to separate them for feeding, so you don't have feeding mistakes. That would not be fun. But basically, cohabitating 100% of the time for at least 6 months out of the year, some of them more than that, reporting extremely good success. Now again, that's just anecdotal. That's just people's personal experiences. That's not really scientific either, but it's certainly as strong as the people, or stronger in my opinion, as the people who are like, they were curling up on top of each other, that's a sign of bullying. Come on, we gotta be better than that in the hobby, right? And in life, but we're just, this channel focuses on the reptile hobby. We should do better than that. So, we do not currently cohabitate any of our snakes. We do with our tree monitors. It's just the accepted way to keep them in pairs, one and one. Some people do trios, but one and one is most common. Some people cohabitate their sailfin dragons. We don't. But, if we had a larger enclosure, we might consider it. The only snake that I'm really considering it at all would be our pair of Dominican red mountain boas. So, I want people to be open-minded and think through these things and not just blindly accept it because they read it on a forum somewhere. Forums are great. They're for sharing information, but it's not a Supreme Court that declares this is not constitutional for reptiles, or this is, it just, I don't know. I don't know, it seems like we could do better if we just made our own decisions based off of what we thought was best for the animal. Now, you do run into ethics problems because you do get hoarders. You do get people who are like, well, tanks are expensive. I don't want to drop another $100 on another tank, which, you know, for this person, it's probably going to be a subpar tank anyway. And they're like, so I'll just stick this snake in with the other snake I've got. It'll be great. And they do this over and over and over. Well, no, that's a problem. You know, you're doing something because you can't actually afford the animals that you have, and that is not safe for the animals at all. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the science of reptile behavior and psychology of animals in general is advancing and confessing that we may have been wrong, and these reptiles might have quite a bit more adaptations and evolution towards social structure than we thought. Even snakes, I'm not just talking about my tree monitors, but even snakes, they might have things that we just weren't tracing because they don't function like mammals do. They don't have the cues, the visual cues like mammals do, the facial structure that can change, the musculature, the fine musculature that can make facial expressions, your cats and dogs and other mammals are very expressive, and their tails wag and all sorts of things. Tails go under, ears perk up, ears go back. Reptiles don't have any of that. And we, as humans, have attached all of those physical cues to social interaction, and the lack of the physical cues to us we've always assumed must mean the lack of social interaction. But it turns out we're wrong at some level. Now, I doubt we're ever going to find a species of snake with the intensity and complexity of a wolf pack. The hundreds and hundreds of forms of communication that happens between those types of animals. I'm not saying I expect to find out that these your corn snakes are communicating on an elephant-like level. There's no way. However, we're also pretty darn wrong in thinking that they're just mindless. I can't even say insects, because there's some very social insects, right? I mean, so all I'm getting at is, if you see someone cohabitating their snakes, don't immediately jump down their throat. First off, you're probably on the internet. You probably don't even know this person. You really shouldn't be jumping down their throat anyways. And I know. Well, I'm just doing it for the good of their animals. No, you're attacking them. No one in history has ever been attacked personally and said, I appreciate your constructive criticism. You know that. I know that. That's not how it works. But if you are really concerned about their animal, that's fine. Maybe even very delicately in a private message bring something up. But maybe they know what they're doing. Maybe they've been doing it for 15 years and their corn snakes are happy as could be and healthy. Maybe they did some experimentation and they tried different forms of housing. Maybe they're not cheap. Maybe they have plenty of extra tanks, but they realize that their animals do great together. I don't know. There are channels here on YouTube of people free-ranging reptiles of many species in the same room and doing pretty well. So I need to be more open-minded to this. Now, I'm not going to go sticking my tree monitors in with my Dominican red mountain boas. That's not going to happen. But I am probably going to try cohabitating this species. And if it goes really well, we might get a bigger enclosure and try a trio. If it doesn't go well, we have enclosures. We'll put them back separately. But I'm really hopeful that they'll continue eating, that they won't lose weight, that they won't show me what I consider signs of stress. Curling up on top of each other for snakes, some people say is a dominance thing. If it is, that might not actually be a bad thing. because in most species that have a hierarchy, the ones on the bottom of the hierarchy aren't less happy than the ones on the top. It's only humans who get that ego thing going. A wolf who's lower down on the hierarchy, he's still happy. He needs to know where he places in his social circle, and then he's happy. And if he feels like, oh, I've grown, I'm stronger, I'm more powerful now, I'm smarter, more experienced, I'm going to challenge for a couple spots higher, okay, they're going to have some scuffles. My snakes aren't going to probably do that. You know, it's pretty much going to be which one's bigger. That's the one on top. Or I could be totally wrong. Maybe they aren't doing a dominance thing at all. I haven't personally read, if you have, please share with me, but I have not personally read a scientific paper that has very firm proof that the cuddling is actually a dominance thing. I've seen people that's their opinion, but I haven't seen a real good science that says that's the case. If it does exist, I'm not saying that there isn't a good paper out there, I just haven't seen it. So, you know, I want to see how my animals do when they are free to interact if they feel like it, like they would be in nature. And of course, in an enclosure, no matter how big it is, you aren't free to just get away if you want to. Whereas outside, in nature, you can just slither on over to another tree if you want to. But I will be careful if we end up doing this. I'm not sure we will, but it would be interesting. And you know, keeping my tree monitors as long as I have now, it's been awesome. It's been really awesome. Seeing them interact, seeing them bond. They really do bond. Again, totally different topic, different video, but because it's related, I wanna bring this up real quick. We paired Evelette, our female blue tree, with a different male. We took out the old male. We put in Little Blue, our captive bred male. And they did not know each other previously. We did a real slow introduction. You know, we watched them for hours and then continually checked up on them, ready to pull them out if there was any problems. Not that there usually are with tree monitors. And it was about 3 days before they would even approach each other. It was really funny. They sat plastered to either wall, 6 feet apart, staring at each other for like 3 days. Finally, they approached each other in the middle, sniffed each other. They didn't really do much else. They just, tons of tongue flicking, very curious, moving up and down each other's bodies, looking, sniffing. They both started eating really heavily. They were hungry because they'd been stuck on a wall for 3 days watching each other. They wouldn't even go into the heights. They were just watching each other. So they started eating, pigging out because they were hungry, tons of bugs. Gave them a couple mice, I think, some quail or something. A couple days after that, they were totally chill with each other. They didn't seem interested in breeding, but they were not nervous of each other at all. They would pass each other. They would, without watching and being skittish, they wouldn't make each other jump and startle. So they were past that initial ice-breaking stage. About 3 days ago, they seemed to, I don't want to anthropomorphize, but they seemed to finally reach more of a friendship level. From an animal standpoint, from a reptile brain standpoint, you might word it more like they had realized that each other was not a threat. They realized they were the same species. They realized they were different genders. They started to become sexually interested in each other. At the very least, that's what I would say from the animal's perspective. From looking at it as a human, you might say they thought maybe they could become friends, right? Started snuggling in the same hides, following each other around a lot, eating at the same time, basking at the same time, and always aware of where the other one was. Still weren't breeding. Finally today, caught them breeding for the first time. So it's been a really cool progression. It's been about 2 weeks, I'd say, since first introduction. And I've heard of people who put a new pair of tree monitors together that's never met before. They're breeding within 30 minutes. That was not the case with these two, apparently. And that's fine. I was fascinated by the process of watching how they socialized. And they were absolutely socializing. Now, most people would say, well, your tree monitors are naturally a more social species. Monitors in general are among the most intelligent of reptiles anyways, but don't do it with snakes. It won't work with snakes. Again, we're deviating from, like, let's use data and science, or at least like shared experiences. You're assuming things, right? Anyways, what I would love is if any of you who are watching has cohabitated anything. And I don't really mean just short introductions for breeding purposes. I mean housed at least 2, if not more, reptiles of any sort together long term. Please, I would love to hear your experiences. If I were greedy, what I would most love is if you would send me a video or an email or something with a lot of detail, but at the very least, a comment that's like what species it was, how long they've been cohabitating, something like that. I would really appreciate that. I would like to start seeing other people's experiences with this, because my opinion's not totally formed on this. There might be very valid reasons not to cohabitate animals. A lot of communicable diseases are passed on through close contact, which you're going to avoid a lot more easily if they're not cohabitating. So there's a lot of things to consider. One of the animals in the cage might gobble all the food, and the other one might not get it because the other one's just a more aggressive eater. So there's a lot of thought that has to go into this. I'm really not trying to say chuck your reptiles together and see how it goes. Do it intelligently, do it carefully, watch your reptiles, right? Anyway, that is all. If a reptile barn animal is going to be cohabitating that hasn't been previously, it's going to be this guy. He'll probably be thrilled because right now it's, breeding season for these boas. Yeah, at least separate for feedings and things like that. But I hope it goes well. I think we are going to do it. We have some new animal plastics cages we've wanted to set up for months. So we're probably going to set it up with lots and lots of shelves, different basking places, different hides, maybe even different water bowls since both of these like to swim. Just so they have the option of getting away from each other if they want to. But this is a breeding pair that's been introduced many, many times. So they know each other. They like each other. I think it's going to be awesome. I hope it's going to be awesome. And we will take you along on the journey when we do it. So, again, just a plug. If you wouldn't mind a quick comment of the species you cohabitate and how long it's been, I would really appreciate it. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, we're the Reptile Barn. Yeah.